Abuelo. Grandfather. Alibis. Plural of alibi. Third person singular simple present indicative form of alibi. Alibi. The plea or mode of defense under which a person on trial for a crime proves or attempts to prove being in another place when the alleged act was committed. An excuse, especially one used to avoid responsibility or blame. To provide an alibi for. To provide an excuse for. Barfly. A person who spends much time in a bar or similar drinking establishment. A promiscuous person, especially a woman, who frequents bars hoping to find sexual partners. Bigamy. A second marriage after the death of a spouse. The state of having two, legal or illegal, spouses simultaneously. Bionic. Related to bionics. Of a biological organism, having been enhanced by electronic or mechanical parts. Cyborg. Superhuman. Carnal. Of or relating to the body or flesh. Relating to the physical and especially sexual appetites. Worldly or earthly. Temporal. Choosy. Taking care when choosing that what is chosen best suits one's tastes, desires or requirements. Codger. An amusingly eccentric or grumpy, and usually elderly man. Cougar. An older woman who actively seeks the casual, often sexual, companionship of younger men, by implication a female sexual predator. A mountain lion. Puma concolor. Craggy. Characterized by rugged, sharp, or coarse features. Crummy. Full of crumb or crumbs. Soft, like the crumb of bread, not crusty. Bad, poor. A small van, bus, or railway car used to transport loggers or other resource workers to and from the worksite. Deface. To alter a coat of arms or a flag by adding an element to it. To damage or vandalize something, especially a surface, in a visible or conspicuous manner. To void or devalue. To nullify or degrade the face value of. Demise. The conveyance or transfer of an estate, either in fee for life or for years, most commonly the latter. Death. The end of something, in a negative sense. Downfall. To pass by inheritance. To convey, as by will or lease. Dextro. Dexterauditory. Dimwit. A person who is deficient in intelligence. Dinghy. A small open boat, propelled by oars or paddles, carried as a tender, lifeboat, or pleasure craft on a ship. An inflatable rubber life raft. To travel by dinghy. Disown. To refuse to own, or to refuse to acknowledge one's own. To repudiate any connection to. To renounce. To detach so that it can continue to run, even when the user who launched it ends his or her login session. Duress. Harsh treatment. Constrained by threat. To put under duress. To pressure. Illicit. To draw out, bring forth, something latent. To obtain information from someone or something. To use logic to arrive at truth. To derive by reason. Eulogy. An oration to honor a deceased person, usually at a funeral. Speaking highly of someone or something. The act of praising or commending someone or something. Flexin. A flexural phonon. Floozy. Alternative spelling of floozy. Floozy. A prostitute who attracts customers by walking the streets. A vulgar or sexually promiscuous woman. A hussy or slattern. Forger. A person who creates forgeries, falsifies documents with intent to defraud, e.g. to create a false will, or illicit copies of currency. Counterfeiter. A person who forges metals. Frigid. Sexually unresponsive, especially of a woman. Chilly in manner, lacking affection or zeal. Impassive. Very cold, lacking warmth. Icy. Galoot. A clumsy or uncouth person. Groggy. Of a horse, bearing wholly on its heels when trotting. Slowed or weakened, as by drink, sleepiness, etc. Grungy. Dirty, shabby, in disrepair. Of or relating to grunge music. Gutful. As much as one is willing to hear or experience. Too much. As much as a gut will hold. Haunch. The area encompassing the upper thigh, hip and buttocks on one side of a human, primate, or quadruped animal, especially one that can sit on its hindquarters. A squat vertical support structure. A jerked underhand throw. The loin and leg of a quadruped, especially when used as food. To provide with a haunch or supporting structure. To throw with an underhand movement. Horrid. Bristling, rough, rugged. Causing horror or dread. Offensive, disagreeable, abominable, execrable. Humbly. In a humble manner. Hustle. An activity, such as prostitution or reselling stolen items, that a prisoner uses to earn money in prison. A propensity to work hard and get things done. Ability to hustle. To rush or hurry. To con or deceive, especially financially. Imbibe. To take in, absorb. To steep. To cause to absorb liquid. To drink, used frequently of alcoholic beverages. Incite. To stir up or excite. To rouse or goad into action. Inmate. A person confined to an institution such as a prison, as a convict, or hospital, as a patient. A person who shares a residence, such as a hotel guest, a lodger, or a student living on campus, or other place. Jaeger. A robotic exoskeleton used in combat. A hunter's guide. A rifle. A sharpshooter, a rifleman, light infantry. Any of 3 seabirds in the Skua genus Stercorarius. Looter. One who loots, who steals during a general disturbance such as a riot or natural disaster. Martyr. One who sacrifices their life, station, or something of great personal value, for the sake of principle, or to sustain a cause. To persecute. To torment. To torture. Mayhem. The crime of damaging things, or harming people on purpose. The maiming of a person, by depriving him of the use of any of his limbs which are necessary for defense or protection. A state or situation of great confusion, disorder, trouble or destruction. Chaos. Infliction of violent injury on a person or thing. Menace. An annoying and bothersome person or thing. A perceived threat or danger. The act of threatening. To make threats against. To intimidate. To endanger someone or something. To imperil or jeopardize. To threaten, an evil to be inflicted. Mingle. The act of informally meeting numerous people in a group. To associate or unite in a figurative way, or by ties of relationship. To deprive of purity by mixture. To contaminate. To make or prepare, by mixing the ingredients of. Mirage. An illusion. An optical phenomenon in which light is refracted through a layer of hot air close to the ground, often giving the illusion of a body of water. To cause to appear as or like a mirage. Mouthy. Overly talkative, insolent, and loud. Of a dog, inclined to bite or nip. Nerine. Any of various plants, of the genus Nerine, that are poisonous to cattle. Nitwit. A scatterbrained or stupid person. Nookie. A pacifier. Sexual intercourse or other sexual activity, especially if illicit. Normie. Like a normal person. A normal person. One with commonly held beliefs, tastes or interests. Ordinary. Cantankerous, stubborn, disagreeable. Mischievous, prankish, teasing, disagreeable but in a good way. Commonplace, inferior. Peddle. To spread or cause to spread. To sell illegal narcotics. To sell things, especially door to door, or in insignificant quantities. Plunge. To fall or rush headlong into something, action, state or condition. To cast, stab or throw into something, state, condition or action. To dive, leap or rush into water or some liquid. To submerge oneself. To pitch or throw oneself headlong or violently forward, as a horse does. Prefab. Prefabricated. A single-story prefabricated home built in many British cities immediately after World War II, intended to have a short life, but in a few cases still in use. A reusable object in a video game world. A prefabricated building. A prefabricated section of a building. To prefabricate. Quirky. Given to quirks or idiosyncrasies. Strange in a somewhat silly, awkward manner, potentially cute. Radium. A type of cloth woven from silk or synthetic yarn, often with a shiny appearance. The chemical element, symbol Ra, with an atomic number of 88. It is a soft, shiny and silvery radioactive alkaline earth metal. To treat with radium. Ramrod. Device used with muzzleloaders, to push the projectile up against the propellant. An erect penis. Rancher trail foreman, usually the first or second person in charge, the person responsible for getting the work done. To force. rancid, offensive, rank in taste or smell, repent, to cause to have sorrow or regret, to cause to feel pain or regret, to be sorry for sin is morally evil, and to seek forgiveness, to cease to practice sin and to love, to be sorry for, to regret, to feel pain on account of, to remember with sorrow, revoir, to re-examine, to see again, to savory, morally or ethically acceptable, salty and or spicy, but not sweet, tasty, attractive to the palate, scabby, having a blotched uneven appearance, affected with scabs, full of scabs, disease with the scab, or mange, mangy, injured by the attachment of barnacles to the carapace of a shell, scruff, someone with an untidy appearance, the loose skin at the back of the neck of some animals, scurvy, contemptible, despicable, low, disgustingly mean, covered or affected with scurf or scabs, scabby, scurfy, specifically, diseased with the scurvy. A disease caused by insufficient intake of vitamin C leading to the formation of livid spots on the skin, spongy gums, loosening of the teeth and bleeding into the skin, and from almost all mucous membranes. Senile. Exhibiting the deterioration in mind and body often accompanying old age. Doddering. Of, or relating to old age. A person who is senile. Shabby. Clothed with ragged, much worn, or soiled garments. Mean, paltry, despicable. Torn or worn, unkempt. Shoddy. Ambitious by reason of newly acquired wealth. Nouveau riche. Pretentious, sham, counterfeit. Of poor quality or construction. Vulgar pretense or sham. Worthless goods. A low-grade cloth made from byproducts of wool processing, or from recycled wool. Siesta. A nap, especially an afternoon one taken after lunch in some cultures. To take a siesta. To nap. Sluice. An instance of WH stranding ellipsis, or sluicing. A long box or trough through which water flows, used for washing auriferous earth. A watergate or floodgate. An artificial passage for water, fitted with a valve or gate, for example in a canal lock or a mill stream, for stopping or regulating the flow. Hence, an opening or channel through which anything flows. A source of supply. The stream flowing through a floodgate. Smudge. A heap of damp combustibles partially ignited and burning slowly, placed on the windward side of a house, tent, etc. to keep off mosquitoes or other insects. A blemish or smear, especially a dark or sooty one. Dense smoke, such as that used for fumigation. To obscure by blurring. To smear. To soil or smear with dirt. Snappy. Irritable. Rapid and without delay. Tidy. Well-dressed. Sharp. Chilly, brisk, sharp. Clever, catchy. tending to snap or bite. Snotty. Ill-tempered or impertinent in an arrogant, conceited manner. Resembling or characteristic of snot, especially in texture. Running or dirtied with snot. The lion's mane jellyfish, which secretes a mucus that can foul fishing nets. A midshipman. Snuffy. Sulky, angry, vexed. Soiled with snuff. Solace. A source of comfort or consolation. Comfort or consolation in a time of loneliness or distress. To take comfort. To be cheered. To allay or assuage. To give solace to. Comfort. Cheer. Console. Spazzy. Clumsy, inept. Spiffy. Dapper. Fine or neat, especially in style of clothing or other appearance. A dapper person. Squirm. A twisting, snake-like movement of the body. To twist in discomfort, especially from shame or embarrassment. To twist one's body with snake-like motions. Starch. Stiff, precise, rigid. Carbohydrates, as with grain and potato-based foods. A stiff, formal manner. Formality. Fortitude. Stocky. Sturdy, solidly built, heavy and compact. Stride. The distance covered by a long step. To walk with long steps. To stand with the legs wide apart. To straddle. To bestride. Subdue. To bring a country under control by force. To overcome, quieten, or bring under control. Trifle. A particular kind of pewter. A very small amount. An English dessert made from a mixture of thick custard, fruit, sponge cake, jelly and whipped cream. Anything that is of little importance or worth. An insignificant amount of money. To act, speak, or otherwise behave with jest. To deal with something, as if it were of little importance or worth. To squander or waste. Troner. To thunder. Turret. A little tower, frequently a merely ornamental structure at one of the corners of a building or castle. A tower-like solder post on a turret board, a circuit board with posts instead of holes. An armored, rotating gun installation on a fort, ship, aircraft, or armored fighting vehicle. The elevated central portion of the roof of a passenger car, with sides that are pierced for light and ventilation. Twinge. A pinch. A tweak. A twitch. A sudden sharp pain. To have a sudden, sharp, local pain, like a twitch. To suffer a keen, darting, or shooting pain. To affect with a sharp, sudden pain. To torment with pinching or sharp pains. To pull with a twitch. To pinch. To tweak. Twitch. Action of spotting or seeking out a bird, especially a rare one. A brief, small movement out of place, and then back again. A spasm. To jerk sharply and briefly. To spot or seek out a bird, especially a rare one. Uproar. A loud protest, controversy, outrage. Tumultuous, noisy excitement. Dot. To make an uproar. To throw into uproar or confusion. Vermin. Animals that prey on game, such as foxes or weasels. Any one of various common types of small insects or animals which cause harm and annoyance. Obnoxious, or mean and offensive person or people. Vulgar. Debased, uncouth, distasteful, obscene. The vernacular tongue or common language of a country. Amoebic. Relating to, or caused by an amoeba. Avarice. Excessive or inordinate desire of gain. Greed for wealth. Inordinate desire for some supposed good. Bellboy. A male worker, usually at a hotel, who carries luggage and runs errands. Borscht. A beetroot soup that can be served hot or cold, usually with sour cream. Any similar sour soup made of other ingredients such as sorrel, cabbage, hogweed. Carmine. Of the purplish-red color shade carmine. A purplish-red color, resembling that pigment. A purplish-red pigment, made from dye obtained from the cochineal beetle carminic acid or any of its derivatives. Clogger. A physically aggressive player. A maker of the shoes called clogs. One who, or that which, clogs. Condone. To allow, accept or permit something that is considered morally wrong, offensive, or generally disliked. To forgive, excuse or overlook something that is considered morally wrong, offensive, or generally disliked. To forgive marital infidelity or other marital offense. Convict. A person convicted of a crime by a judicial body. A person deported to a penal colony. To convince, persuade to cause someone to believe in something. To find guilty, as a result of legal proceedings, or informal in a moral sense.
Crucify. To thoroughly beat at a sport or game. To execute by nailing to a cross. To punish or otherwise express extreme anger at, especially as a scapegoat or target of outrage.
Deficit. A situation wherein, or amount whereby, spending exceeds revenue. Deficiency in amount or quality of falling short lack. Dormant. Leaning. In a sleeping posture distinguished from couchant. Inactive, sleeping, asleep, suspended. A crossbeam or joist. Evasion. The act of eluding or evading or avoiding, particularly the pressure of an argument, accusation, charge, or interrogation, artful means of eluding. Frantic. Insane, mentally unstable. In a state of panic, worry, frenzy, or rush. A person who is insane or mentally unstable, madman. Gizzard. A specialized organ constructed of thick muscular walls found in the digestive tract of some animals, including archosaurs, birds, earthworms, some gastropods, some fish, and some crustaceans used for grinding up food, often aided by particles of stone or grit. Grouchy. Irritable. Easily upset. Angry. Tending to complain. Harlots. Plural of harlot. Harlot. Wanton, lewd, low, base. A female who is considered promiscuous. A female prostitute. A churl. A common man. A person, male or female, of low birth. A person given to low conduct. A rogue. A cheat. A rascal. To play the harlot. To practice lewdness. Hayride. A recreational ride in a vehicle full of hay. Haywire. Behaviorally erratic or uncontrollable, especially of a machine or mechanical process. Usually used with the verb go. Roughly made, unsophisticated, decrepit, from the use of haywire for temporary repairs. Wire used to bind bales of hay. Hoodlum. A gangster or hired thug. A rough or violent youth. Killjoy. A person who is anti-fun, or prevents others from having fun. Mortify. To be subdued. To lose vitality. To embarrass, to humiliate, to injure one's dignity. Placate. To calm. To bring peace to. To influence someone who is furious to the point that they become content, or at least no longer irate. Scrawny. Thin, malnourished and weak. Smuggle. To thrash or be thrashed by a bear's claws, or to swipe at, or be swiped at by a person's arms in a bear-like manner. To bring in surreptitiously. To import or export, illicitly or by stealth, without paying lawful customs charges or duties. To fondle or cuddle. Vaguely. In a vague manner. Loosely, more or less, somewhat. Wiretap. A connection installed on a telephone line or other communication system, in order to allow a third party to conduct covert surveillance of conversations. To install or to use such a connection. Abuelito. Diminutive of abuelo, grandfather, gramps, grandpa. Abuelo. Grandfather. Amputate. To cut off, to prune. To surgically remove a part of the body, especially a limb. Bludgeon. A short, heavy club, often of wood, which is thicker, or loaded at one end. To coerce someone, as if with a bludgeon.
To strike or hit with something hard, usually on the head. To club.
Bogeyman. Any make-believe threat, especially one used to intimidate or distract. A menacing, ghost-like monster in children's stories. Calamite. An extinct genus of tree-like horsetails, calamites. Cesspool. A filthy place. An underground pit where sewage is held. Comatose. Drowsy or lethargic. Fast asleep. In a coma. Unconscious. Conflict. A clash or disagreement, often violent, between two or more opposing groups or individuals. An incompatibility, as of two things that cannot be simultaneously fulfilled. To be at odds. To disagree or be incompatible. To overlap as in a schedule. Conspire. To agree, to concur to one end. To secretly plot, or make plans together, often with the intention to bring bad or illegal results. To work together to bring about. Crackpot. Eccentric or impractical. An eccentric, crazy, or foolish person. Someone addicted to crack cocaine, i.e. a drug addict. Daiquiri. A cocktail of rum, lemon or lime juice and sugar, sometimes with fruit added. Decrepit. Weakened or worn out from age or wear. Drunkard. A person who is habitually drunk. Embezzle. To steal or misappropriate money that one has been trusted with, especially to steal money from the organization for which one works. Enforcer. A player who physically intimidates or confronts the opposition. One who enforces. The member of a group, especially of a gang, charged with keeping dissident members obedient. Giantism. Synonym of gigantism is gigantism. A condition where there is overproduction of growth hormone by the pituitary gland in a child before the bone growth plates close, resulting in excessive long bone growth, accompanied by muscular weakness and sexual impotence. The quality or state of being gigantic, being of abnormally large size. Homicide. A person who kills another. A victim of homicide, a person who has been unlawfully killed by someone else. The killing of one person by another, whether premeditated or unintentional. Imposter. A sprite or animation integrated into a three-dimensional scene, but not based on an actual 3D model. Someone who attempts to deceive by using an assumed name or identity. Itemized. Simple past tense and past participle of itemize. Itemize. To state in items, or by particulars. Lackland. A person who does not own land. Leniency. An act of being lenient. The quality of mercy or forgiveness, especially in the assignment of punishment, as in a court case. Lunkhead. A fool or idiot. Meathead. A member of the Canadian Forces Military Police. A large muscular stupid male, especially an athlete. An ungainly, dull or stupid person. Someone who's lazy, disrespectful and or whose beliefs and philosophies clash with another. Meringue. A mixture consisting of beaten egg whites and sugar which is added to the tops of pies then browned. A shell made of this mixture which serves as the receptacle for fruit, ice cream or sherbet. Migraine. A neurological condition characterized by such headaches. A severe, disabling headache, usually affecting only one side of the head, and often accompanied by nausea, vomiting, photophobia and visual disturbances. Mitigate. To downplay. To reduce, lessen, or decrease to make less severe or easier to bear. Molester. Agent noun of molest, one who molests. Alternative form of molest. Numbnuts. A slow-witted, unresponsive, or inept person, usually male. Perspire. To be evacuated or excreted, or to exude, through the pores of the skin. To emit through the skin's pores. Reformer. A device which converts hydrocarbons into a hydrogen-rich mixture of gases. One who is involved in the Reformation. One who reforms, or who works for reform. Sanctity. Something considered sacred. The condition of being considered sacred inviolability. Sanitize. To revise a document, in order to prevent identification of the sources. To rid of microorganisms by cleaning or disinfecting. To make something, such as a dramatic work, more acceptable by removing potentially offensive material. To filter text to ensure it does not contain any characters that will cause problems for, or be interpreted in an adverse way by the receiving system. To remove sensitive or personal data from a database or file. Savagery. A violent act of cruelty. Savage or brutal behavior. Barbarity. Wild growth of plants. Savages collectively. The world of savages. Scrounge. Someone who scrounges a scrounger. To hunt about, especially for something of nominal value, to scavenge or glean. To obtain something of moderate or inconsequential value from another. Shetland. Lightweight, loosely twisted wool fabric. Snappish. Exhibiting irritation or impatience. Curt. Irascible. Likely to snap or bite. Sonogram. A medical image produced by ultrasound echo. A spectrogram. To perform a sonogram upon. Splatter. A genre of gory horror. An uneven shape or mess created by something dispersing on impact. To splash, to scatter, to land or strike in an uneven, distributed mess. To cause something to splatter. To spatter something or somebody. Squabble. A minor fight or argument. To participate in a minor fight or argument. To quarrel. To disarrange, so that the letters or lines stand awry and require readjustment. Subdural. Located beneath the dura mater and above the arachnoid mater. Ellipsis of subdural hematoma. Superego. The part of the mind that acts as a self-critical conscience, reflecting social standards that have been learned. Tolerate. To allow to exist or occur without interference. Trespass. An intentional interference with another's property or person. To enter someone else's property illegally. Villainy. Characteristic of a villain. A wicked or treacherous act. Evil or wicked character or behavior. Boorishness, rudeness, bad cultivation or manners. Disgrace, ignominy. Ill treatment, indignity, degrading or shameful treatment of someone. The state of being a villain or serf, and by extension servitude or low estate in life. Whackjob. A crazy, possibly dangerous, person. Absurdity. The quality of being absurd, or inconsistent with obvious truth, reason, or sound judgment. Acquittal. Payment of a debt or other obligation, reparations, amends. Appellate. That can be appealed to, especially of a court that hears appeals of decisions by a lower court. Applicant. One who applies for something, one who makes a request, a petitioner. The third coordinate in a three-dimensional coordinate system. Arbitrary. Not representative or symbolic, not iconic. Any, out of all that are possible. Based on individual discretion or judgment, not based on any objective distinction, perhaps even made at random. Determined by impulse, rather than reason, heavy-handed. Determined by independent arbiter. Anything arbitrary, such as an arithmetical value or a fee. Armistice. A cessation of combat. A ceasefire, a truce. A formal agreement, especially between nations, to end combat. Atonement. Reconciliation. Restoration of friendly relations. Concord. The reconciliation of God and mankind through the death of Jesus. Making amends to restore a damaged relationship. Expiation. Atrocious. Frightful, evil, cruel, or monstrous. Offensive or heinous. Very bad, abominable, disgusting. Ballistic. Very angry. The science of objects that predominantly fly under the effects of gravity, momentum and atmospheric drag, and dealing with details of their behavior at the origin and destination of their flight, as of bullets or missiles or rockets. Bellyache. Any pain in the belly, stomach, or abdomen. To unnecessarily complain or whine, often about simple matters. Bloodbath. A large financial loss or massive layoff brought about by negative economic conditions. Indiscriminate killing or slaughter, a massacre. Brutality. A cruel or savage act. The state of being brutal. The use of excessive physical force, often in the form of violence. Cabriolet. A light two- or four-wheeled carriage with a folding top, pulled by a single horse. An automobile with a retractable top. Catatonic. Motionless and unresponsive, as from shock. Withdrawn. Of, relating to, or suffering from catatonia. A patient in a state of catatonia. Cauterize. To burn, sear, or freeze tissue using a hot iron, electric current or a caustic agent. Cellulite. The dimpled appearance of skin caused by the protrusion of subcutaneous adipose tissue. Chronicle. A written account of events, and when they happened, ordered by time. To record in, or as in a chronicle. Cirrhosis. Interstitial inflammation of kidneys, lungs, and other organs. A chronic disease of the liver caused by damage from toxins, metabolic problems, hepatitis, or nutritional deprivation. It is characterized by an increase of fibrous tissue and the destruction of liver cells. Coagulant. That causes coagulation or that coagulates. A substance that causes coagulation. Consonant. Harmonizing together. Accordant. Having the same sound. Of or relating to consonants. Made up of, or containing many, consonants. Consistent, harmonious, compatible, or in agreement. A sound that results from the passage of air through restrictions of the oral cavity. Any sound that is not the dominant sound of a syllable, the dominant sound generally being a vowel. A letter representing the sound of a consonant. Corpuscle. A minute particle. An atom. A molecule. A protoplasmic animal cell, especially such as float free, like blood, lymph, and pus corpuscles, or such as are embedded in an intercellular matrix, like connective tissue and cartilage corpuscles. Crosswind. A wind blowing across a line of travel. Crotchety. Cranky, disagreeable, or stubborn, especially if prone to odd whims or fancies. Culminate. To reach a climax. To come to the decisive point, especially as an end or conclusion. To finalize, bring to a conclusion, form the climax of. Debutante. A female debutante, especially in sport and entertainment. A young woman who makes her first formal appearance in society. Defeatist. Of, or relating to defeatism. Someone who advocates defeatism, or has such an attitude. Deformity. An ugly or misshapen feature or characteristic. The state of being deformed. Delirious. Being in the state of delirium. Having uncontrolled excitement. Ecstatic. Denigrate. To blacken. To criticize so as to besmirch, traduce, disparage or defame. To treat as worthless, belittle, degrade or disparage. Dexterity. Skill in performing tasks, especially with the hands. Dictation. An activity in school, where the teacher reads a passage aloud, and the students write it down. The act of ordering or commanding. Dictating, the process of speaking for someone else to write down the words. Orders given in an overbearing manner. Disembark. To go ashore out of a ship or boat. To leave a train or airplane. To remove from on board a vessel. To put on shore. Dissolute. Recklessly abandoned to sensual pleasures. Unrestrained by morality. Dysentery. A disease characterized by inflammation of the intestines, especially the colon, accompanied by pus in the feces, fever, pain in the abdomen, high volume of diarrhea, and possible blood in the feces. Diarrhea. Elaborate. Complex, detailed, or sophisticated. Intricate, fancy, flashy, or showy. To develop in detail or complexity. Encounter. A match between two opposing sides. A hostile, often violent meeting, a confrontation, skirmish, or clash, as between combatants. A meeting, especially one that is unplanned or unexpected. To confront someone or something face to face. To meet someone or find something, especially unexpectedly. To engage in conflict, as with an enemy. Enigmatic. Enigmatical. Defying description. Mysterious. Pertaining to an enigma. Enlighten. To supply with light. To make something clear to give knowledge or understanding to. Enunciate. To make sounds clearly. To articulate, pronounce.
To make a definite or systematic statement of.
To announce, proclaim. Excessive. Exceeding the usual bounds of something extravagant, immoderate. Excursion. An occurrence where an aircraft runs off the end or side of a runway or taxiway, usually during takeoff, landing, or taxi. A deviation in pitch, for example in the syllables of enthusiastic speech. A brief recreational trip, a journey out of the usual way. A wandering from the main subject, a digression. To go on a recreational trip or excursion. Extortion. The practice of extorting money or other property by the use of force or threats. Flophouse. A cheap hotel or boarding house, where many people sleep in large rooms. To stay in a flophouse. Flotation. The launching onto the market of a tranche of stocks or shares, usually a new issue. A process of separating minerals, by agitating a mixture with water, and detergents etc. selected substances being carried to the surface in air bubbles. A state of floating, or being afloat. The ability, as of a tire or snowshoes, to stay on the surface of soft ground or snow. Fricassee. Meat or poultry cut into small pieces, stewed or fried and served in its own gravy. To cook meat or poultry in this manner. Glandular. Pertaining to a gland or glands, having the characteristics or function of a gland. Having the characteristics or function of a gland. Innate, inherent. Physical, sexual. Grotesque. Disgusting or otherwise viscerally revolting. Distorted and unnatural in shape or size. Abnormal and hideous. Biome. Rabbit plain. Hematuria. The presence of blood in the urine. Hindrance. Something which hinders, something that holds back or causes problems with something else. The state or act of hindering something. Humdinger. Something that is particularly outstanding, unusual, or exceptional. Impudence. Impudent language, conduct or behavior. The quality of being impudent, not showing due respect. Indignity. An affront to one's dignity or pride. Degradation, debasement, or humiliation. Informant. One who relays confidential information to someone, especially to the police. An informer. A native speaker who acts as a linguistic reference for a language being studied. The informant demonstrates native pronunciation, provides grammaticality judgments regarding linguistic well-formedness, and may also explain cultural references and other important contextual information. Ingenious. Displaying genius or brilliance. Inventive. Characterized by genius. Cleverly done or contrived. Witty. Showing originality or sagacity. Ingleside. Beside an open fireplace. Innocuous. Harmless. Producing no ill effect. Inoffensive. Unprovocative. Not exceptional. Interlace. A technique of improving the picture quality of a video signal primarily on CRT devices without consuming extra bandwidth. A decorative element found especially in early medieval art. To cross one another, as if woven together. To intertwine. To blend intricately. To cross one with another. To mingle. To blend. Interlock. A safety device that prevents activation in unsafe conditions. To fit or clasp together securely. To interlace. Interment. The act of burying a dead body. Burial. Intuition. A perceptive insight gained by the use of this faculty. Immediate cognition without the use of conscious rational processes. Lecherous. Given to excessive sexual activity and debauchery. Liberator. A person who frees or liberates. Matrimony. The ceremony of marriage. A particular solitaire card game using 2 decks of cards. Marriage. The state of being married. Mercenary. Motivated by private gain. One motivated by gain, especially monetary. One hired to engage in a figurative battle, as a corporate takeover, a lawsuit, or a political campaign. A person employed to fight in an armed conflict who is not a member of the state or military group for which they are fighting, and whose primary motivation is private gain. Metronome. A device, containing an inverted pendulum, used to mark time by means of regular ticks at adjustable intervals. An electronic equivalent that emits flashes. Momentary. Ephemeral or relatively short-lived. Happening at every moment. Perpetual. Lasting for only a moment. Mortified. Acutely embarrassed. Simple past tense and past participle of mortify. Mortify. To be subdued. To lose vitality. To embarrass, to humiliate, to injure one's dignity. Murderous. Very difficult. Of an object, used to commit murder, capable of causing death, deadly, fatal. Of a person, intending or likely to commit murder, bloodthirsty, homicidal. Of, characterized by, or pertaining to murder or murderers. Narcotics. Pertaining to illicit drugs, especially psychoactive ones. Plural of narcotic. Narcotic. Inducing sleep causing narcosis. Relating to or denoting narcotics or illegal drugs. A drug or other substance that affects mood or behavior and is consumed for non-medical purposes, especially one sold illegally. Any type of numbing or soothing drug. Notoriety. An infamous or notorious condition or reputation. Obnoxious. Exposing to harm or injury. Extremely unpleasant or offensive. Very annoying, odious or contemptible. Obstinate. Typical of an obstinate person. Fixed and unmoving. Not easily subdued or removed. Stubbornly adhering to an opinion, purpose, or course, usually with implied unreasonableness. Persistent. Officious. Obliging, attentive, eager to please. Offensively intrusive or interfering in offering advice and services. Pathology. The medical specialty that provides microscopy and other laboratory services, e.g. cytology, histology to clinicians. The branch of medicine concerned with the study of the nature of disease and its causes, processes, development, and consequences. Pathosis, any deviation from a healthy or normal structure or function, abnormality, illness, or malformation. Patronize. To act as a patron of. To defend, protect, or support. To assume a tone of unjustified superiority toward. To talk down to treat condescendingly. To make oneself a customer of a business, especially a regular customer. To blame, to reproach. Pessimism. The condition of being pessimal. A general belief that bad things will happen. The doctrine that this world is the worst of all possible worlds. Posterity. All the future generations, especially the descendants of a specific person. The principle. A rule or law of nature, or the basic idea on how the laws of nature are applied. A fundamental assumption or guiding belief. A fundamental essence, particularly one producing a given quality. A rule used to choose among solutions to a problem. A source, or origin that from which anything proceeds, fundamental substance or energy, primordial substance, ultimate element, or cause. To equip with principles to establish, or fix, in certain principles to impress with any tenet or rule of conduct. Profanity. Obscene, lewd or abusive language. The quality of being profane. Quality of irreverence, of treating sacred things with contempt. Prosecute. To pursue something to the end. To charge, try. To start criminal proceedings against. To seek to obtain by legal process. Punctuate. To add or to interrupt at regular intervals. To add punctuation to. To emphasize. To stress. Reminisce. An act of reminiscence. To recall the past in a private moment, often fondly or nostalgically. To talk or write about memories of the past, especially pleasant memories. To remember fondly. To reminisce about. Retaliate. To do something harmful or negative to get revenge for some harm. To fight back, or respond in kind to an injury or affront. To repay or requite by an act of the same kind. Retractor. A chess puzzle in which a number of moves are retracted, and the solver is challenged to reach an alternate outcome. A muscle serving to draw in any part. A bandage to protect soft parts of the body from injury by a surgical saw. A surgical instrument used to hold apart the edges of an incision or wound. In breech-loading firearms, a device for withdrawing a cartridge shell from the barrel. One who, or that which, retracts. Roquefort. Roquefort, cheese. Sacrilege. Desecration, profanation, misuse or violation of something regarded as sacred. Salvation. The process of being saved, the state of having been saved from hell. The process of being restored or made new for the purpose of becoming saved, the process of being rid of the old poor quality conditions and becoming improved. To save, in the religious sense, to bring to salvation. Scoundrel. A mean, worthless fellow. A rascal. A villain. A person without honor or virtue. Scrimmage. In some team sports, especially soccer, a practice game which does not count on a team's record. A rough fight. In American football or Canadian football, a play that begins with a snap from the center, while opposing teams are on either side of a line of scrimmage. To have, or be involved in, a scrimmage. Shithouse. Of poor quality. A coward, one who is overly fearful or timid. An outhouse, an outbuilding used as a lavatory. Shitstorm. Considerable backlash from the public. A chaotic and unpleasant or violent situation. Shrubbery. A planting of shrubs. A wide border to a garden, where shrubs are thickly planted, or a similar larger area with a path winding through it. Shrubs collectively. Signatory. Relating to a seal. Used in sealing.
Signing. Joining or sharing in a signature.
One who signs, or has signed something. Skedaddle. The act of running away. A scurrying off. To move or run away quickly. To spill. To scatter. To snowdrift. A bank of snow accumulated by the wind. Sociology. The study of society, human social interaction and the rules and processes that bind and separate people, not only as individuals, but as members of associations, groups and institutions. Sociopath. A person with an antisocial personality disorder. Spindrift. Sea spray blown from the tops of waves by the wind. Snow blown by the wind at sea. Squeamish. Averse or reluctant. Easily shocked, sickened, or frightened, tending to be nauseated or nervous. Oversensitive. Strenuous. Requiring great exertion. Very laborious. Having great vigor or energy. Forceful. Swampland. Low-lying land that is regularly flooded, especially such land that is drier than a bog or a marsh. The set of all possible string theories. Syndicate. A group of gangsters engaged in organized crime. A group of individuals or companies formed to transact some specific business or to promote a common interest as self-coordinating group. The office or jurisdiction of a syndicate body or council of syndics. To become a syndicate. To put under the control of a group acting as a unit. To release media content through a syndicate to be broadcast or published through multiple outlets. Tarnation. Bothersome. Devilish. Generic intensifier. Very. Extremely. The act or process of damnation or reprobation. How? Someone or something that causes trouble. Troublemaker. Vacillate. To sway unsteadily from one side to the other. Oscillate. To swing indecisively from one course of action or opinion to another. Verminous. Actively unpleasant, contemptible, or otherwise reminiscent of vermin. Infested with vermin. Womanizer. A man who habitually flirts with and seduces, or attempts to seduce, women. Admissible. Describing a heuristic that never overestimates the cost of reaching a goal. Capable or deserving to be admitted, accepted or allowable, permissible, acceptable. Amendments. Plural of amendment. Amendment. An addition to and/or alteration to the Constitution. Correction of an error in a writ or process. An alteration or change for the better correction of a fault, or a false reformation of life by quitting vices. In public bodies, any alteration made or proposed to be made in a bill or motion that adds, changes, substitutes, or omits. That which is added, that which is used to increase or supplement something. Autocratic. Of or pertaining to autocracy, or to an autocrat. Absolute. Holding independent and arbitrary powers of government. Of or pertaining to the manner of an autocrat. Benefactor. Somebody who gives a gift, often money, to a charity. Someone who performs good or noble deeds. Bureaucrat. An official who is part of a bureaucracy. Cockamamie. Foolish, ill-considered, silly, unbelievable. Trifling. A foolish or ridiculous person. Commandant. A commanding officer, usually of a specific force or division. Conspiracy. An agreement between two or more persons to break the law at some time in the future. The act of two or more persons, called conspirators, working secretly to obtain some goal, usually understood with negative connotations. Contraband. Prohibited from being traded. A black slave during the American Civil War who had escaped to, or been captured by, Union forces. Any goods which are illicit or illegal to possess. Goods which are prohibited from being traded, smuggled goods. To declare prohibited. To forbid. To import illegally. To smuggle. To contradict. To give an order contrary to one given by another person, oppose or resist someone. To speak against. To forbid. To be contrary to. To deny the truth or validity of. To oppose by denying the truth or pertinence of a given statement. Convention. A formal deliberative assembly of mandated delegates. A meeting or gathering. The convening of a formal meeting. Conviction. A firmly held belief. A judgment of guilt in a court of law. The state of being found or proved guilty. The state of being wholly convinced. Correspond. To be equivalent or similar in character, quantity, quality, origin, structure, function, etc. To exchange messages, especially by postal letter, over a period of time. To have sex with. Crustacean. Any arthropod of the subphylum Crustacea, including lobsters, crabs, shrimp, barnacles, and woodlice. Deficiency. An insufficiency, especially of something essential to health. The amount by which the number of double points on a curve is short of the maximum for curves of the same degree. The condimension of a linear system in the corresponding complete linear system. Inadequacy or incompleteness. Despicable. Fit or deserving to be despised. Contemptible. Mean. A wretched or wicked person. Detainment. The condition of being detained. Detention. Diabolical. Extremely wicked or cruel. Of or concerning the devil. Satanic. Disenchant. To disappoint. To free from illusion, false belief or enchantment. To undeceive or disillusion. To remove a spell or magic enchantment from. Egocentric. Egotistical. Relating to spatial representations, linked to a reference frame based on one's own location within the environment, as when giving the direction as right rather than north. Opposed to allocentric. Selfish, self-centered. A person who is egocentric. Endangered. Simple past tense and past participle of endanger. Endanger. To incur the hazard of, to risk, to run the risk of. To put someone or something in danger, to risk causing harm to. Entrapment. A method of isolating specific cells or molecules from a mixture, especially by immobilization on a gel. Action by law enforcement personnel to lead an otherwise innocent person to commit a crime, in order to arrest and prosecute that person for the crime. the state of being entrapped. Exfoliated. Simple past tense and past participle of exfoliate. Exfoliate. To split into scales, especially to become converted into scales as the result of heat or decomposition. To remove a layer of skin, as in cosmetic preparation. To remove the leaves from a plant. Expatriate. Living outside of one's own country. To renounce the rights and liabilities of citizenship, where one is born and become a citizen of another country. To withdraw from one's native country. To banish. To drive or force from his own country. To make an exile of. Expediency. An expedient. Haste. Dispatch. Pursuit of the course of action that brings the desired effect, even if it is unjust or unprincipled. The quality of being fit or suitable to effect some desired end or the purpose intended. Suitability for particular circumstance or situation. Fearmonger. Someone who spreads fear, or needlessly raises the alarm. To spread fear. Flotation. Alternative spelling of flotation. Flotation. The launching onto the market of a tranche of stocks or shares, usually a new issue. A process of separating minerals, by agitating a mixture with water, and detergents etc. selected substances being carried to the surface in air bubbles. A state of floating, or being afloat. The ability, as of a tire or snowshoes, to stay on the surface of soft ground or snow. Fornicator. An unmarried person who engages in sexual intercourse, especially when considered to be of an illicit or illegal nature. Funkadelic. Of, or relating to, funkadelia. Having a funky beat. Gangrenous. Indicative of or afflicted with gangrene. Harassment. Deliberate pestering or intimidation. Persistent attacks and criticism causing worry and distress. Hellacious. Remarkable, unbelievable, unusual. Horrible, awful, hellish, agonizing. Nasty, repellent. Hereabouts. Near here. Hysterical. Having, or prone to having hysterics. Of, or arising from hysteria. Provoking uncontrollable laughter. Impeccably. In a perfect or flawless manner. Impoverish. To become poor. To make poor. To weaken in quality. To deprive of some strength or richness. Indiscreet. Not discreet. Lacking in discretion. Inexorable. Adamant. Severe. Impossible to prevent or stop. Inevitable. Unable to be persuaded. Relentless. Unrelenting. Infallible. Certain to produce the intended effect, sure. Without fault or weakness. Incapable of error or fallacy. A person who, or an object or process that, is taken as being infallible. Inhabitant. Resident. Someone or thing who lives in a place. Inoperable. Incapable of being successfully surgically operated on. Incapable of operation or function. Inoperative. Insurgency. Rebellion. Revolt. The state of being insurgent. Intimidate. To make timid or afraid. To cause to feel fear or nervousness. To deter, especially by threats of violence. Ionosphere. The part of the Earth's atmosphere beginning at an altitude of about 50 kilometers, 31 miles, and extending outward 500 kilometers, 310 miles, or more. The similar region of the atmosphere of another planet. Juiceheads. Plural of juicehead. Juicehead. A bodybuilder that uses, or appears to use, steroids and is of poor intellect, or by extension any large male. An alcoholic. Commandant. A commander, commanding officer. Laboratory. A place where chemicals, drugs or microbes are prepared or manufactured. A room, building or institution equipped for scientific research, experimentation or analysis. Laceration. An irregular open wound caused by a blunt impact to soft tissue. The act of lacerating or tearing. Lascivious. Wanton. Lewd, driven by lust, lustful. Legitimate. Authentic, real, genuine. Conforming to known principles, or established or accepted rules or standards valid. In accordance with the law or established legal forms and requirements. Relating to hereditary rights. A person born to a legally married couple. To make legitimate, lawful, or valid especially, to put in the position or state of a legitimate person before the law, by legal means. Mainstream. Used or accepted broadly, rather than by small portions of a population or market. That which is common the norm. To popularize, to normalize, to render mainstream. To educate a disabled student together with non-disabled students. Malevolent. Having an evil or harmful influence. Having or displaying ill will. Wishing harm on others. Mediocrity. The quality of being intermediate between two extremes. A mean. A middle course of action. Moderation, balance. The condition of being mediocre. Having only an average degree of quality, skills, etc. No better than standard. An individual with mediocre abilities or achievements. Menopausal. Of, or pertaining to the menopause. Monotonous. Having an unvarying pitch or tone. Tedious, repetitious, or lacking in variety. Naltrexone. A synthetic drug, similar to morphine, which blocks opiate receptors in the nervous system, and is used chiefly in the treatment of heroin addiction. Obliterate. To remove completely, leaving no trace. To wipe out. To destroy. Omniscient. Having total knowledge. One who has total knowledge. Ovipositor. A tubular protruding organ for laying eggs. Pallbearer. One who carries a corner of the pall over a coffin or casket. One called upon to carry, or bear the casket at a funeral. Peckerhead. An electric motor's terminal connection or wiring box. A dickhead, an unpleasant, stupid or mean person. Perpetrate. To be guilty of, or responsible for a crime, etc. To commit. Pistoleros. Plural of pistolero. Pistolero. gunman, polygamist, one who practices polygamy or maintains that it is lawful, precocious, characterized by exceptionally early development or maturity, exhibiting advanced skills and aptitudes at an abnormally early age, projectile, caused or imparted by impulse or projection impelled forward, projecting or impelling forward, any object propelled through space by the application of a force, an object intended to be or having been fired from a weapon. Proprietor.
One or more persons to whom a colonial territory is assigned, like a fief, including its administration.
As sole owner of an unincorporated business, also called a sole proprietor. An owner. One of the owners of an unincorporated business, a partner. Proverbial. Not used in a literal sense, but as the subject of a well-known metaphor. Of, resembling, or expressed as a proverb, click, fable, or fairy tale. Widely known, famous, stereotypical. Used to replace a word that might be considered unacceptable in a particular situation when using a well-known phrase. The groin or the testicles. Psychopath. A person with no moral conscience who perpetrates especially gruesome or bizarre violent acts. A person diagnosed with antisocial or dissocial personality disorder. A person with a personality disorder indicated by a pattern of lying, cunning, manipulating, glibness, exploiting, heedlessness, arrogance, delusions of grandeur, sexual promiscuity, low self-control, disregard for morality, lack of acceptance of responsibility, callousness, and lack of empathy and remorse. Such an individual may be especially prone to violent and criminal offenses. Rationally. In a rational manner. Regulation. In conformity with applicable rules and regulations. A law or administrative rule, issued by an organization, used to guide or prescribe the conduct of members of that organization. A type of law made by the executive branch of government, usually by virtue of a statute made by the legislative branch giving the executive the authority to do so. Remorseful. Feeling or filled with remorse. Expressing or caused by remorse. Reorganize. To undergo a reorganization. To organize something again, or in a different manner. Retraction. A continuous function from a topological space onto a subspace which is the identity on that subspace. A statement printed or broadcast in a public forum which effects the withdrawal of an earlier assertion, and which concedes that the earlier assertion was an error. An act or instance of retracting. Scattergun. Unfocused in approach or topic. A shotgun. Scrutinize.
To audit accounts, etc. in order to verify them.
To examine something with great care or detail, as to look for hidden or obscure flaws. Stagnation. Being stagnant. Being without circulation. Inactivity. Stimulator. A person, device or substance that stimulates. Subterfuge. An indirect or deceptive device or stratagem. A blind. Refers especially to war and diplomatics. Deception. Misrepresentation of the true nature of an activity. Sympathize. To agree. To be in accord. To harmonize. To have a common feeling, as of bodily pleasure or pain. To have, show or express sympathy. To be affected by feelings similar to those of another, in consequence of knowing the person to be thus affected. Tourniquet. A tightly compressed bandage used to stop bleeding, by stopping the flow of blood through a large artery in a limb. A turnstile. Any of several similar methods of clamping components into position. Tubercular. Of, pertaining to, or having tuberculosis. Relating to or reminiscent of the wheezing sounds associated with the breathing of tuberculosis patients. Tuberculate. Tyrannical. Despotic, oppressive or authoritarian. Of, or relating to tyranny or a tyrant. Vigilantes. Plural of vigilante. Vigilante. A person who considers it their own responsibility to uphold the law in their neighborhood and often does so summarily and without legal jurisdiction. Acromegalia. An alternative name for the disease acromegaly. Altercation. Heated or angry dispute. Anachronism. A chronological mistake, the erroneous stating of an event, circumstance, or object. A person or thing which seems to belong to a different time or period of time. Appeasement. The state of being appeased, the policy of giving in to demands, in order to preserve the peace. Aristocracy. A class of people considered not normally universally superior to others. Government by such a class, or a state with such a government. The nobility, or the hereditary ruling class. Atmospheric. Translucent or hazy. Evoking a particular emotional or aesthetic quality. Of, relating to, produced by, or coming from the atmosphere. Behavioral. Of or pertaining to behavior. Catastrophe. A disaster beyond expectations. The dramatic event that initiates the resolution of the plot. Any large and disastrous event of great significance. Certifiable. Mentally ill to such an extent that involuntary institutionalization is appropriate. Crazy. That can, or that must be certified. A crazy person. Clairvoyant. Able to foresee the future. Able to see things that cannot be perceived by the normal senses. A person able to see things that cannot be perceived by the normal senses. Commandment. Something that must be obeyed. A command or edict. The offense of commanding or inducing another to violate the law. The act of commanding. Exercise of authority. A divinely ordained command, especially one of the 10 Commandments. Compensated. Simple past tense and past participle of compensate. Compensate. To adjust or adapt to a change, often a harm or deprivation. To do something good after something bad happens. To pay or reward someone in exchange for work done, or some other consideration. Confiscated. Simple past tense and past participle of confiscate. Confiscate. Confiscated. Seized and appropriated by the government for public use. Forfeit. To use one's authority, to lay claim to and separate a possession from its holder. Congregates. Third person singular simple present indicative form of congregate. Consistency. Freedom from contradiction. The state of a system of axioms such that none of the propositions deduced from them are mutually contradictory. firmness of constitution or character, substantiality, durability, persistency, correspondence or compatibility, local coherence, reliability or uniformity, the quality of being consistent, the degree of viscosity of something, conspirator, one of a group that acts in harmony, a person who is part of a conspiracy, part of a group that agree to do an unlawful or unethical act, contaminate, to make something dangerous or toxic by introducing impurities or foreign matter, to make unfit for use by the introduction of unwholesome or undesirable elements, to soil, stain, corrupt, or infect by contact or association, to infect, often with bad objects, contemplate, to consider as a possibility, to look at on all sides, or in all its aspects, to view or consider with continued attention, to regard with deliberate care, to meditate on, to study, ponder, or consider. Continental, of or relating to the Confederated colonies collectively, in the time of the Revolutionary War. Of the mainland, as opposed to an island offshore. A member of the Continental Army. Paper scrip issued by the Continental Congress, largely worthless by the end of the war. The smallest amount. A wit. A jot. Someone from the continent. Contingency. A possibility, something which may or may not happen, a chance occurrence, especially in finance, unexpected expenses. An amount of money which a party to a contract has to pay to the other party. A statement which is neither a tautology nor a contradiction. Contingents. Plural of contingent. Contingent. Dependent on something that is undetermined or unknown, that may or may not occur. Not logically necessarily true or false. Possible or liable, but not certain to occur. An event which may or may not happen. That which is unforeseen, undetermined, or dependent on something future. That which falls to one in a division or apportionment among a number. A suitable share. Continually. In a continual manner. Non-stop. In regular or repeated succession. Very often. Contraption. Any object. A machine that is complicated and precarious. Cornerstone. That which is prominent, fundamental, noteworthy, or central. A stone forming the base at the corner of a building. Such a stone used ceremonially, often inscribed with the architect's and owner's names, dates and other details. Correlation. An isomorphism from a projective space to the dual of a projective space, often to the dual of itself. One of the several measures of the linear statistical relationship between two random variables, indicating both the strength and direction of the relationship. A reciprocal, parallel or complementary relationship between two or more comparable objects. Correlative. Mutually related. Corresponding. A pro-form. A non-personal pronominal, projectival, or proverbial form. Either of two correlative things. Corroborate. To confirm or support something with additional evidence. To attest or vouch for. To make strong. To strengthen. Cosmetology. The profession of a cosmetologist or beautician. The science of cosmetics. Counterfeit. Assuming the appearance of something. Deceitful. Hypocritical. False, especially of money. Intended to deceive or carry appearance of being genuine. To falsely produce what appears to be official or valid. To produce a forged copy of. Countermand. An order to the contrary of a previous one. To oppose. To revoke the command of. To prohibit. To recall a person or unit with such an order. To revoke a former command. To cancel or rescind, by giving an order contrary to one previously given. Counterpart. A duplicate of a legal document. Either half of a flattened fossil, when the rock has split along the plane of the fossil. Either of two parts that fit together, or complement one another. One which has corresponding functions or characteristics. One which resembles another. Counterbalance. Credibility. Believability of statements by a witness, as measured by whether the testimony is probable or improbable, when judged by common experience. Reputation impacting one's ability to be believed. Criminality. A criminal act. Criminal activity. The state of being criminal. Crustaceans. Plural of crustacean. Crustacean. Any arthropod of the subphylum Crustacea, including lobsters, crabs, shrimp, barnacles and woodlice. Crystalline. Having a regular three-dimensional molecular structure. Of, relating to, or composed of crystals. Resembling crystalline, being clear and transparent. Degradation. A deleterious change in the chemical structure, physical properties or appearance of a material from natural or artificial exposure. Arrest of development, or degeneration of any organ, or of the body as a whole. The act of reducing in rank, character, or reputation, or of abasing, a lowering from one's standing, or rank in office or society. The state or condition of a species or group which exhibits degraded forms. Deprivation. Detraction. Depreciation. Can we add an example for this sense? The act of depraving, or making anything bad. The act of corrupting. The state of being depraved or degenerated. Degeneracy. Depravity. Dereliction. Land gained from the water by a change of water line. The act of abandoning something, or the state of being abandoned. Willful neglect of one's duty. Desperation. A state of despair, or utter hopelessness. Abandonment of hope. The act of despairing or becoming desperate. A giving up of hope. Reckless fury. Despondency. The loss of hope or confidence, despair or dejection. Destructive. Lossy, causing irreversible change. Causing breakdown or disassembly. Causing destruction, damaging. Devastating. Causing devastation. Present participle of devastate. Devastate. To break beyond recovery or repair, so that the only options are abandonment, or the clearing away of useless remains, if any, and starting over. To destroy a whole collection of related ideas, beliefs, and strongly held opinions. To gravely demoralize, to cause to suffer intense grief or dismay. To ruin many or all things over a large area, such as most or all buildings of a city, or cities of a region, or trees of a forest. Devastation. Waste or misapplication of the assets of a deceased person by an executor or administrator. Devastivate. The act of devastating, or the state of being devastated. A laying waste. Directorial. Of or pertaining to a director. Of or pertaining to administration, or to a directorate. Discrepancy. An inconsistency between facts or sentiments. The state or quality of being discrepant. Dissipation. A loss of energy, usually as heat, from a dynamic system. A dissolute course of life, in which health, money, etc., are squandered in pursuit of pleasure, profuseness and immoral indulgence, as late hours, riotous living, etc. Dissoluteness. A trifle which wastes time or distracts attention. The act of dissipating or dispersing. A state of dispersion or separation. Dispersion. Waste. Distasteful. Unpleasant. Having a bad or foul taste. Offensive. Distinction. Specifically, a feature that causes someone or something to stand out as being better. A mark of honor, rank, eminence or excellence. Being distinguished. That which distinguishes. A single occurrence of a determining factor or feature, the fact of being divided. Separation, discrimination. The act of distinguishing, discriminating. Discrimination. Distinctive. Distinguishing a particular sense of word. A distinctive thing, a quality or property permitting distinguishing. Distinguish. To make to differ. To make oneself noticeably different, or better from others through accomplishments. To recognize someone or something as different from others based on its characteristics. To see someone or something clearly or distinctly. Distraction. Traction so exerted as to separate surfaces normally opposed. Mental disorder. A deranged state of mind. Insanity. Perturbation. Disorder. Disturbance. Confusion. Something that distracts. The process of being distracted. Disturbance. A serious mental imbalance or illness. A noisy commotion that causes a hubbub or interruption. An interruption of that which is normal or regular. Something that disturbs. The act of disturbing, being disturbed. Egotistical. Believing oneself to be better and more important than others. Tending to talk excessively about oneself. Emplacement. The inclusion of igneous rock in older rocks, or the development or localization of an ore body in older rocks. The latter is referred to as ore deposition. A place where a thing is located. The act of placing something somewhere. An installation that houses a military weapon. Encumbrance. An interest, right, burden, or liability attached to a title of land, such as a lien or mortgage. One who is dependent on another. Something that encumbers, a burden that must be carried. Enforcement. A giving force to. A putting in execution. That which enforces, constraints, gives force, authority, or effect to. Constraint. Force applied. The act of enforcing. Compulsion. Evidentiary. of or pertaining to evidence. Explanation. A resolution of disputed points pursuant to discussion. A mutual clarification of disputed points. Reconciliation. Something that explains, makes understandable. The act or process of explaining. Extradition. A formal process by which a criminal suspect held by one government is handed over to another government for trial, or, if the suspect has already been tried and found guilty, to serve his or her sentence. Extravagant. Exceeding the bounds of something, roving, hence, foreign. Exorbitant. Extreme, wild, excessive, unrestrained. Profuse in expenditure, prodigal, wasteful. Fabrication. The act of cutting up an animal carcass is preparation for cooking, butchery. That which is fabricated, a falsehood. The act of fabricating, framing, or constructing, construction, manufacture. Flamboyance. The tendency to attract attention because of one's exuberance, confidence, and stylishness. Forbearance. A refraining from the enforcement of something, as a debt, right, or obligation, that is due. Patient self-control. Restraint and tolerance under provocation. Foreclosure. The proceeding, by creditor, to regain property or other collateral following a default on mortgage payments. The absence of a symbolic father for a fatherless child, as a cause for psychosis. Fornication. Sexual intercourse in general. Sex. Sexual intercourse by people who are not married to each other, or which is considered illicit in another way. Genetically. By being members of the same linguistic family. In a manner relating to genes or genetics. In terms of origin or development. Godforsaken. Abandoned by a deity or god. Particularly awful. Very bad. Hindquarter. The hind biped of a quadruped, or all body parts situated behind the hind leg's trunk attachment. Human behind, butt. Either rear half of the side of beef, mutton, veal, lamb, or by extension from another edible mammal. Ichthyology. The branch of zoology devoted to the study of fish. Implication. An implying, or that which is implied, but not expressed. An inference, or something which may fairly be understood, though not expressed in words. The act of implicating. The state of being implicated. Impoundment. A body of water impounded within an enclosure, such as a reservoir. The act of impounding. The state of being impounded. Indomitable. Incapable of being subdued, overcome, or vanquished. Inescapable. Impossible, unable to avoid or escape. Not escapable. Infatuation. The act of infatuating, the state of being infatuated, madness. An immensely strong love or sexual attraction. Something which infatuates. Inferiority. An inferior power. An inferior value or quality. The quality of being a competitive disadvantage. The quality or state of being inferior. Ingratitude. A lack or absence of gratitude. Thanklessness. Inoculation. The introduction of an antigenic substance or vaccine into the body to produce immunity to a specific disease. The introduction of a microorganism into a culture medium. An inoculum, that which is inoculated. The insertion of the buds of one plant into another, grafting. inseparable, unable to be separated, bound together permanently, something that cannot be separated from something else, institution, the act by which a bishop commits a cure of souls to a priest, a person similarly long established in a place, position, or field, a custom or practice of a society or community, an organization similarly long established and respected, particularly one involved with education, public service, or charity work. The building or buildings which house such an organization. Intentional. Done with intent. Intended or planned. Done deliberately or voluntarily. Intercourse. Communication, conversation. Dealings between countries. Dealings with people, including commerce and trade. Sexual intercourse usually involving humans. To have sexual intercourse. Interrogate. To question or quiz, especially in a thorough and/or aggressive manner. To query. To request information from. To examine critically. Intimidator. One who intimidates. Intolerable. Extremely offensive or insulting. Not tolerable, not capable of being borne or endured. Intravenous. Inside the veins. A dose of medicine administered from a drip, down through a hollow needle inserted into a patient's vein. Investigate. To conduct an inquiry or examination. To examine, look into, or scrutinize in order to discover something hidden or secret. To inquire into or study, in order to ascertain facts or information. Involvement. The act of involving, or the state of being involved. Irrefutable. Undeniable, unable to be disproved or refuted. Merchandise. Goods which are or were offered or intended for sale. The act or business of trading, trade, traffic. To engage in in-store promotion of the sale of goods, as by display and arrangement of goods. To engage in trade, to carry on commerce. To engage in in-store promotion of the sale of. Misdemeanor. A crime usually punishable upon conviction by a small fine, or by a short term of imprisonment. Misdemeanants usually are incarcerated in county jail for less than 1 year, but felons usually are incarcerated in state or federal prison for more than 1 year. Crimes which are punishable by large fines, or by longer imprisonment, are sometimes called felonies. Misinformed. Simple past tense and past participle of misinform. Misinform. To give or deliver false, fake, or misleading information. Momentarily. In a moment or very soon, any minute now, any time now. In a momentary manner, for a moment or instant. Progressively, moment by moment. Monstrosity. A monstrous person, thing, or act. An organism showing abnormal development or deformity. The state of being monstrous. Nationalist. Of or relating to nationalism. A person who strongly identifies with their own nation and vigorously supports its interests, especially to the exclusion or detriment of the interests of other nations. Nourishment. Something that nourishes. Food.
The act of nourishing, or the state of being nourished.
Opportunist. Someone who takes advantage of any opportunity to advance their own situation, placing expediency above principle. overwrought, elaborate, overdone, excessively nervous, excited, tense, angry, anxious, or upset, overemotional, very uneasy, overzealous, too zealous, too enthusiastic or fervent. Pancuronium, a synthetic steroid which is used as a neuromuscular blocking agent. Paraldehyde, a cyclic trimer of acetaldehyde once used as an antidepressant.
Esperanto, paraldehydo.
Patriarchal, characteristic of a patriarch, venerable, relating to a system run by males rather than females. Penetration, the proportion of the target audience who buy the advertised product or service. Specifically, the insertion of the penis or similar object during sexual intercourse. The act of penetrating a given situation with the mind or faculties. Perception, discernment. The act of penetrating something. Persecution, a program or campaign to subjugate or eliminate a specific group of people, often based on race, religion, sexuality, or social beliefs. The act of persecuting. Perspective, of, in or relating to perspective. The choice of a single angle or point of view from which to sense, categorize, measure or codify experience. A sound recording technique to adjust and integrate sound sources seemingly naturally. The ability to consider things in such relative perspective. The appearance of depth in objects, especially as perceived using binocular vision. The technique of representing three-dimensional objects on a two-dimensional surface. Philander, one who plays at courtship, a fickle lover, a flirt usually applies only to men. Someone who engages in casual sex usually frequently. Precipitate, moving with excessive speed or haste, overly hasty. Falling steeply or vertically. A product resulting from a process, event, or course of action. To come out of a liquid solution into solid form. To have water in the air fall to the ground, for example as rain, snow, sleet, or hail, be deposited as condensed droplets. To make something happen suddenly and quickly. Descend violently into a certain state or condition. Predecessor, a vertex having a directed path to another vertex. A model or type of machinery or device which precedes the current one, usually used to describe an earlier, outdated model. One who precedes, one who has preceded another in any state, position, office, etc. One whom another follows or comes after, in any office or position. Predicament, that which is predicated, a category. A definite class, state or condition. An unfortunate or trying position or condition. Predictable, able to be predicted. Preliminary, in preparation for the main matter. Initial, introductory, preparatory. A preparation for a main matter, an introduction. A relatively minor contest that precedes a major one, especially in boxing. Any of a series of sports events that determine the finalists. Preposition, any of a class of non-inflecting words typically employed to connect a following noun or a pronoun, in an adjectival or adverbial sense, with some other word, a particle used with a noun, or pronoun to make a phrase limiting some other word. A proposition, An exposition. A discourse. To place in a location before some other event occurs. Pretentious. Intended to impress others. Marked by an unwarranted claim to importance or distinction. Proficiency. Ability, skill, competence. Prohibition. A law prohibiting the manufacture or sale of alcohol. A period of time when specific socially disapproved consumables are considered controlled substances. An act of prohibiting, forbidding, disallowing, or prescribing something. Prosecution. The institution of legal proceedings against a person. The prosecuting party. The act of prosecuting a scheme or endeavor. Protagonist. The main character, or one of the main characters, in any story, such as a literary work or drama. An advocate or champion of a cause, or course of action. A leading person in a contest, a principal performer. Provocation. The second step in op quest regarding the investigation of what makes the symptoms more annoy, improve, or deteriorate. Something that provokes. A provocative act. The act of provoking, inciting or annoying someone into doing something. Provocative. Serving or tending to elicit a strong, often negative sentiment in another person. Exasperating. Serving or tending to excite, stimulate, or arouse sexual interest. Something that provokes an appetite, especially a sexual appetite. An aphrodisiac. Psychiatric. Of, or relating to, psychiatry. Radioactive. Dangerous and disgusting, particularly of people or ideas. Exhibiting radioactivity. Any radioactive substance. Regrettably. In a manner inspiring or deserving regret. Requisition. A notarial demand for repayment of a debt. A call. An invitation. A summons. A formal application by one officer to another for things needed in the public service. A formal demand made by one state or government upon another for the surrender or extradition of a fugitive from justice. To demand something, especially for a military need of staff, supplies, or transport. Respiratory. Relating to respiration or the organs of respiration. Breathing. Secretarial. Connected with a secretary's work.
Pertaining to a secretary.
Sensational. Exceptionally great. Of or pertaining to sensation.
Piquing or arousing the senses.
Provocative. Sentimental. Characterized by sentiment, sentimentality or excess emotion. Derived from emotion rather than reason. Of or caused by sentiment. Romantic. Shortchange. To deprive someone of something for which they paid. To defraud someone by giving them less change than they should be given after a transaction. To make disadvantage by design. Significant. Having a low probability of occurring by chance, for example, having high correlation, and thus likely to be related. Having a noticeable or major effect. Reasonably large in number or amount. Signifying something. Carrying meaning. Speculative. Characterized by speculation, based on guessing, unfounded opinions, or extrapolation. Pertaining to financial speculation, involving or resulting from high-risk investments or trade. Pursuit is a gamble, with possible large profits or losses, risky. Spontaneity. The tendency to activity of muscular tissue, including the voluntary muscles, when in a state of healthful vigor and refreshment. The tendency to undergo change, characteristic of both animal and vegetable organisms, and not restrained or checked by the environment. Spontaneous behavior. The quality of being spontaneous. Suffocation. A particular act of death, or killing by means of asphyxia. Asphyxia condition in which an extreme decrease in the concentration of oxygen in the body accompanied by an increase in the concentration of carbon dioxide leads to loss of consciousness or death. Supremacist. A person who advocates the supremacy of one particular group over all others. Sympathetic. Designed in a sensitive or appropriate way. Of, related to, feeling, showing, or characterized by sympathy, showing approval of or favor towards an idea or action. Synchronize. To agree, be coordinated with, or complement well. To coordinate or combine. Territorial. Displaying territoriality. Organized for home defense, such as the territorial army. Of or relating to geography or territory. Of, relating to, or restricted to a specific geographic area, or territory. A non-professional member of a territorial army. Tranquility. The absence of disturbance. Peacefulness. The absence of stress. Serenity. The quality of calm such as that experienced in places with mainly natural features and activities, free from disturbance from man-made ones. The state of being tranquil. Treacherous. Deceitful. Inclined to betray. Exhibiting treachery. Unreliable. Dangerous. Versatility. The property of being versatile, or having many different abilities. Flexibility. Wiedersehen. To see again. To meet again. Acquiescence. Inaction, passivity, or neglect to take legal action, when it is called for in order to assert, preserve, or safeguard a right, and which inaction implies the abandonment of said right. A silent or passive assent or submission, or a submission with apparent content, distinguished from avowed consent on the one hand, and on the other, from opposition or open discontent, quiet satisfaction. Asymmetrical. Presenting a false dilemma, or a choice between two things which are not opposites. Not symmetrical. Commencement. A graduation ceremony, from a school, college or university. The day when degrees are conferred by colleges and universities upon students and others. The first existence of anything, act or fact of commencing. Congeniality. The quality of being congenial, the state of being agreeable, or of having similar tastes. Conservatory. Having the quality of preserving from loss, decay, or injury. That which preserves from injury. A storehouse. Diabolically. In a diabolical manner. Disenchanted. Simple past tense and past participle of disenchant. Disenchant. To disappoint. To free from illusion, false belief or enchantment, to undeceive or disillusion. To remove a spell or magic enchantment from. Disobedience. Refusal to obey. Ecologically. In an ecological manner. Regarding ecology. Emancipation. The act of setting free from the power of another, as from slavery, subjection, dependence, or controlling influence. The state of being thus set free, liberation. geographical, of or relating to geography, a move to another place in the hope of curing an addiction, etc. Hermetically, in a hermetic manner, isolatedly, with a hermetic seal, so as to be airtight. Hypoglycemia, a too low level of blood glucose. Hypothetical, a possible or hypothetical situation or proposition. Hysterically, in a hysterical manner, showing signs of hysteria. With, or causing, very much laughter. Inadmissible, not admissible, especially that cannot be admitted as evidence at a trial. A person who is not to be admitted to a country, a group, etc. Jurisdiction, the authority of a sovereign power to govern or legislate. The limits or territory within which authority may be exercised. The power or right to exercise authority. The power or right to perform some action as part of applying the law. The power, right, or authority to interpret and apply the law. Knuckleheads, plural of knucklehead. Knucklehead, an idiot, a stupid or inept person. Paradisiacal, of or resembling paradise. Polymorphous, having, or assuming, a variety of forms, characters, or styles. Preposterous, absurd, or contrary to common sense. Psychopathic, exhibiting the behaviors and personality traits of a psychopath. A psychopath. Architectural, pertaining to architecture. Resembling architecture in style, seeming to have been designed by an architect. Consternation, amazement or horror, that confounds the faculties, and incapacitates for reflection, terror, combined with amazement, dismay. Heterosexuals, plural of heterosexual. Heterosexual, sexually attracted to members of the opposite sex. A heterosexual person, or other heterosexual organism. Incarceration, a constriction of the hernial sac, rendering it irreducible, but not great enough to cause strangulation. The act of confining, or the state of being confined, imprisonment. Justification, the forgiveness of sin. A reason, explanation, or excuse which provides convincing, morally acceptable support for behavior or for a belief or occurrence. Misconception, a mistaken belief, a wrong idea. Psychological, of or pertaining to psychology. Relating to the mind and behavior or to the mental, emotional, and behavioral characteristics pertaining to a specified person, group, or activity. Without an objective or reasonably logical foundation. Schizophrenia, any condition in which disparate or mutually exclusive activities coexist, a lack of decision between options. A psychiatric diagnosis denoting a persistent, often chronic mental illness characterized by abnormal perception, thinking, behavior and emotion, often marked by delusions. Stabilization, the result of being stabilized. A preliminary medical process for sick or injured people to attempt to keep their medical condition from deteriorating too much and too quickly before being treated in depth at a medical facility. The process of stabilizing. Strangulation, the act of strangling, or the state of being strangled. The constriction of the air passage, or other body part that cuts off the flow of a fluid. Circumstantial, suggesting guilt, but not proving it conclusively. Abounding with minor circumstances, in great detail, particular. Full of circumstance or pomp, ceremonial. Pertaining to or dependent on circumstances, especially as opposed to essentials, incidental, not essential. something incidental to the main subject, but of less importance. Detoxification. The process of removing toxins. Discrimination. Discernment, the act of discriminating, discerning, distinguishing, noting, or perceiving differences between things, with intent to understand rightly, and make correct decisions. That which discriminates, mark of distinction, a characteristic. The quality of being discriminating acute discernment, specifically in a learning situation, as to show great discrimination in the choice of means. Horticulturist. A gardener, a person interested or practicing horticulture. Indestructible. Not destructible, incapable of decomposition, or of being destroyed, invincible. Reconnaissance. The act of scouting, or exploring especially military or medical, to gain information. Confidentiality. Something told in confidence, a secret. The property of being confidential. Omnidirectional. Having a ring-shaped radiation pattern, with equal radiation in all azimuthal directions. In every direction, especially of a radio system capable of transmitting or receiving signals in all directions, or of a microphone capable of detecting sound from all directions.